Okay. So Dirk, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm really excited to hear more about the work that you do. So I came across you because a dear friend of mine attended your retreat and found it really transformational. So I wanted to hear more, learn more about you. So tell us, who are you and what do you do?
Right. So my name is Dirk Lambert. I'm 60 years old recently. I've been running these alternative mental health retreats for over almost 30 years now, 25 years.
Wow.
And I've been involved in mental health work for 30 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I did have a different career many years ago. I was actually a computer specialist for IBM and AT&T in Europe. And then in the early 1990s, I moved to Thailand. And I was working for a big Thai multinational company doing computer network installations in the region. And that's how I ended up in Vietnam at some point in the early 90s, 92, 93. And I became a volunteer for the American Veteran Association there. And that was the first time I got involved in working with people that suffer from PTSD and CPTSD. So it was because of my interest in psychology and my own history with trauma as a child. I always had an interest, and I was also suffering from trauma and PTSD and all the consequences of that. So there was always something in me that drew me into that domain, to say.
Yeah. And I guess for some people, this quest of trying to heal ourselves sometimes leads us, we start to learn things and then we realize that we have a lot of value and experience. And it might be too personal, so you don't need to share anything you don't want to, but what kinds of experiences do you think shaped you? Was there some issue that you were really struggling with from your past?
Yeah, there's many issues, a whole long list of them. I was diagnosed with Asperger's, suffering from addiction, CPTSD because of childhood trauma, and then the consequences of all that. It was difficult to find proper treatment. I also find conventional treatment not as efficient as it could be or it should be. Conventional talk therapy isn't always effective for a lot of people. Pharmacology also is not what it should be or what it could be. And you end up in a dark alley where you feel like you're the only person in the world that can't be helped.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating, and it's a very long, painful way, a steep hill.
And I think that's something that I feel sometimes as a therapist. Sometimes I feel I'm really able to help people to, it's the right therapist at the right time. And sometimes I wish that I could do more. And I think that's a big part of why I'm embarking on this Lumen project, is to find out, okay, if I, as a therapist, am sensing this is not the right fit for my client, what else could I be offering?
Right. And so it was almost kind of by matter of elimination to going through all the list of the things that don't work or didn't work for me, and keep looking for things that then eventually did work.
Yeah. I'm curious, did you feel like some aspects of traditional therapy were helpful, like as a stepping stone to where you are now, or did you find it all a big waste of time?
It didn't help me a lot, actually. I was very hopeful in the beginning, and it was good. It gave some relief to have a listening ear, but there were not clear solutions or a clear path for me to walk on.
I guess then that made you feel a bit more hopeless, that you sort of embarked, you spent time and money and effort doing a type of therapy only to feel like it wasn't really moving you forwards.
Exactly. And I also felt that a lot of that responsibility, because that the treatment wasn't working, was kind of my fault for some reason.
Yeah.
Which I've seen other people share the same story. It's like apparently they make you believe that it works for everybody else, but not for you. So you're at fault. Or they have this technical term, which is treatment resistance, which I think should be illegal. Basically, it should be an illegal term. So a lot of frustration and a lot of emotional pain that we then seek anesthesia for in every shape or form, which gives you some relief in the early days, but then later on becomes a liability by itself. And then you end up with addiction and more mental health challenges than you actually started with.
Yeah. And I think what I'm feeling is, for me as a therapist, I have things that I feel very expert in. And the more that I learn about other modalities, the more I feel like I don't know anything. But I think for my clients, that's important, that I don't know everything and that I don't just blame the client for being treatment resistant.
Sure.
Like, to say, well, okay, this isn't working for you at this time. Let's try something else. I am not, I'm not a guru. I don't know everything. So let me put you in front of the right people.
It's still what we do also, because neither do I claim that I know everything and that I have a solution for everything. And often I do refer my clients to people like you, like to clinical psychologists or psychiatrists when required, when needed. And I think there should be more transparency and more cooperation between all the different approaches.
Yes. And I think there is hope. When I was working in the UK for the National Health Service, there was a model called the choice and partnership approach, where you would have an initial consultation with somebody like me, and then that person would go through all the different types of treatment, whether it's surf therapy or psychotherapy or whatever. So there is hope, but I think we could still do more. Yeah. So I'm curious to learn a bit more about this modality that you've developed over time, your approach.
As I went through my own path of healing, I came into contact with all different modalities, as in martial arts and breath work and nutrition. And I found that once you start to combine all these different modalities, you have an exponential and added value to the whole outcome of it. I was very surprised by how effective it can be, and also found the reasons why many other treatments are not as effective as they are, because there is insufficient critical mass or push behind it. And if you do 1 hour of yoga a week, that is not going to be sufficient for you to turn your life around. So often there is insufficient critical mass, as I call it, in the treatment to make some required changes. But if you do everything at the same time and you have a daily routine, as we call it, and you take care of your sleep quality, sleep hygiene, and you do an hour or 45 minutes of physical exercise every day and some form of relaxation, meditation, or breath work, if you can do that every day on a daily basis and have a healthy lifestyle or a healthier lifestyle, already so many of these issues start to disappear by themselves.
Yes, yeah. And interestingly, my previous interview that I did really spoke about that, how we have to look at our lives in a more holistic way. So a bit of a commitment to well-being, look at the holistic picture, then many problems will just fall away by themselves. And also the problems that are there to be fixed, they've got good support. You're not sleep deprived, hungry, too stressed, and all these things.
Very much so. So when people arrive in the program, they have very high emotional load. It's also something that I developed systems for, to be able to measure that and follow the actual quality of the treatment itself over time, so we can see if there is an improvement or stagnation or people relapse. Or I think that kind of measurement tools are very, very important. And also, I don't know, I'm not very happy with what is currently available. So out of necessity, we started to developing our own systems.
Yeah. Well, that's really great, isn't it? To be the change, to notice that there's shortcomings in how we treat people and to work hard. I can tell that you work hard at changing the system. That's great. So I was wondering if you could talk me through maybe a client's journey or a typical client's journey, so we can really understand your approach, how you bring about transformation.
So most of the time people contact me through the internet, and there is a long process of onboarding, as we call it, where we do several interviews and emotional evaluation and really look into the profile of the client and the things they're struggling with, and also to eliminate people that have severe psychiatric conditions and are not fit to be admitted in our program. also depending what kind of medications they are on, and so on and so forth, how well they are motivated to do the program. And then at some point they qualify to enter the program.
Mm-hmm.
We have about 40 inquiries every month, and there's only 4 beds.
Yes.
So it's a lot of work to take 4 people out of that pool of 40, and to make sure that we have the highest efficiency also with the people that we treat.
Yes. And I guess the people, those 4 people, you know, they are probably all helping each other along the journey. So,
well, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No, because in my experience, I found that to be also very counterproductive by itself.
Okay.
And we don't do any type of group therapy in our setup, because people have already so much emotional load that they come with. If they then have to take on the emotional load of others, it's just not very productive at all. People all suffer from high emotional sensitivity, cannot deal with their own struggles or their own challenges, and are then confronted with the challenges of all the other people on top of that. Okay, so we highly discourage. It's actually, we have people sign a 6-page contract where they agree that they will not talk with other people during their treatment.
Interesting. Okay. So I guess, yeah, there's different schools of thought on that, but for you,
there is very much so. But in my personal experience now, 25 years running these programs, I know exactly what works and I know exactly what doesn't work. And often, if we don't overmanage or overcontrol the system, then things can be fine for a long time. For months, things are fine. And then for some reason, things derail because one individual decides to unload their story on others that are then, for some reason, specifically sensitive to that topic. And the whole thing derails, and then we can't take the chance for that to happen. So we have to make preventative measures to avoid it.
Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. So when somebody, you know, makes it to the 4, so they pick your 4 places, what then happens? What do you do with them?
Well, it's a very strict and mandatory program. It's almost like a military boot camp in a way. So people have to wake up very early in the morning. 5 o'clock is when we wake them up. 5:30 we leave for a morning walk, and we literally walk into the rising sun. So it's kind of a carpe diem experience. We leave when it's dark, and by the time we come back, the sun is rising. Then they have a sauna and ice bath experience, and by 8 o'clock, by 7 o'clock, 7:15, we do a 45-minute guided meditation. With breath work.
Beautiful.
And then comes 8 o'clock around, we have breakfast, and then the day starts basically where they have an hour of psychotherapy, one-on-one. They have an hour of yoga class, an hour of PT, which is physical training or martial arts class, and they have an hour of massage. And then in the evening, there is another hour of group workshop, and all the books and the materials that we give them, the CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, homework that they have to work through. So it's a very intense program.
Interesting. So, and when you say group work, so I guess the participants aren't allowed to really speak. So that's more them listening.
Yes, correct. So we talk about different techniques, different kind of CBT techniques, teach them how to deal with rumination, with all the negative side effects of defects of character, and so on and so forth. We talk about the 8 domains. So we cut their whole life experience into 8 different domains, and they're going to evaluate every single domain. So there is the physical, the nutritional, the emotional, the relational, the recreational, emotional. There's all these different domains that they have to go through and work out where they are, where they come from, where they're going to go, and how they want to go there.
Wow. Well, it sounds like an amazing opportunity to really take stock of your life and to consider all aspects and where you can make change. So sounds like a lot of us would really benefit.
It's hard labor, eh? But people make tremendous progress because they're so focused, and there is also a confrontation with self, which is induced because they don't have access to their phones. We screen the literature that they bring with them. So at some point in time, they are confronted with self.
Yeah.
And all the other elements of distractions are highly controlled or taken away from them. So, and it's then when people start to make the biggest progress, when they are cornered and when they have to face themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's making me think about, in my life, even though I don't, for example, struggle with addiction or numbing or distraction in a very obvious way, for sure, there's moments in my day where I don't want to confront things. So I lose myself on my phone, or I spend hours on work, and it sounds like a real opportunity to face yourself and look at some things that maybe you've been avoiding.
It's in adversity that lays the biggest progress in creating these adversities and these struggles, and then people go through them and come out a different person on the other side of the equation. It's very, very tough for everybody, for the participant, as it is for me too, to guide them through, especially on day 3 and 4. We call it hit the wall day, when they start to doubt everything, their commitment, the reasons that they're here. Some people think about leaving or giving up, and they have to go through that threshold and over that and deal with their reality.
Yeah. And
unfortunately, sorry to interrupt you, but unfortunately, I don't see that level of how would I call it, of intensity with other programs. People are free to speak. So when they get challenged, they need a form of escape. So rather than facing their own challenges, they start talking with other people. Or they start talking about politics or the weather or Gaza or whatever. And it's all distractions, and it's unnecessary. If people don't want to participate in a certain class, if they don't want to go to yoga, they don't go to yoga. It's as simple as it is. Here they have to sign up that everything is mandatory. They will have to go to the class unless they are exempt for an injury or another reason.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's about giving people a different experience, because if they came to Chiang Mai and met you, but did, and just did what they were doing at home in a different place, then you're not. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a bit pointless, and I'm almost obsessed with results. For me, it's all about bringing the change to the people, or at least showing them the way to make a better life for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And so, without breaking any patient confidentiality, do you think you could give me a sense of the transformation that you've seen in a client or in a sort of amalgamation of clients?
Right. Yeah, it's huge. It's beyond belief. Often people have been confined to their home, have been out of a job, have been under medical care, have been dealing with phobias, have been heavily medicated for extended periods of times, 15, 20, 30 years, sometimes more. And they finally get an opportunity to have a new lease on life.
Yeah, wow.
Radical transformation. But
Yeah.
it doesn't come easy, and it requires a lot from all parties. It requires a lot of commitment. And people don't often realize that everybody has some element of resistance within themselves against their own recovery.
Yes.
That some part of them just plainly refuses to go through any form of change.
And I'm not sure about your specific clients, but what I've seen sometimes in my clients is that some things that are holding somebody back is something that had been keeping them safe for a long time. So they can have resistance to let it go because it feels so unsafe or unnatural.
True, 100%.
On that note of some resistance to change, how is it when a client comes home and they integrate this experience? Because I think it's kind of maybe easy in a way to make radical change.
It is. There is the requirement to be in a contained and safe environment to induce all these things. You couldn't do that in an open environment, so there is a necessity of that. We focus heavily on reintegration therapy in the last part of the program, where we take them out and have them, exposed to the real world, take them to restaurants where there's live music and try to reintegrate into their daily life again. There is always some level of setback for everybody, which is normal because this is an artificial environment. But the one thing is, people have experienced such a new form of I don't know, of level of contentment or joy of something in their life, and they want to cherish that also. So even if they slide back a little bit, they are very determined to get back to that high point where they were then a week or days before, or even a month before. Some people slide quite back, slide low, have a serious relapse, and then still go like, okay, I'm done with this old life. I experienced my new self, and I want to go back there, and I know it's possible.
Yeah, and I guess for some people with very chronic challenges, yeah, they might experience that setback, but at least they've had a taste of what it's like to feel free.
Well, it could be, yes. What it could be, and that is highly addictive by itself. All the people share that they have never experienced that level of newfound identity or confidence or happiness or health or less rumination or all these things at the same time. It's difficult when people that suffer from trauma return to an environment that is still very toxic for them, where they potentially could be still exposed or triggered by their environment when they're in relationships that they shouldn't be in, and so on and so forth. So, but
I assume that people who have come on the course, though, are then more ready to make radical changes in their life, on their environment, because they're like, I cannot have changed this much as a person and go back to the exact same life that I left. So I guess it's
an impossibility. It's impossible. The mind can't sustain that, because they know that there is a different way out. And before, they couldn't see that way out. They thought it was impossible for them to get better or to be there at that newfound level of emotional freedom and independence and self-worth and all these things that comes with recovery.
Yeah.
And then they often make radical decisions to change their environment, change the job, change the partner, change where they're living, and which is also always a good thing.
Yes, yeah. Once the veil's been lifted, it's hard, isn't it, to go?
There's no way back. It's Pandora's box. You open it and you cannot close it anymore. Eh?
Exactly. Interesting. So, you described your retreats as a bit of a boot camp. Should there be something people should be aware of? So if they're listening to this conversation and they think, right, this is exactly what I need to reset my life, I need to take real action here, what should people be mindful of?
Everything depends on the level of commitment that you have. And often that is directly in correlation with the amount of suffering that people have gone through. Because nobody comes for fun. Nobody thinks, oh, let's go and do this retreat. Everybody comes out of sheer desperation and out of necessity at the same time.
Yeah.
So that is one thing, and most of the people, they realize that they cannot continue the same way that they've been going for all these years. Something needs to change. People have suicidal thoughts or have been, hospitalized because they know that they need to do something about it, and are then more willing to do a more extreme commitment to it.
Yeah. And I think that's one thing that would reassure me if I was to take part in this, because you have 25 years of experience and because you've led people in this deep way. It sounds to me like you'd be a very safe pair of hands, even if I was confronted with difficult things. Yeah. And to be honest, I think that is something that's lacking a little bit in this pop psychology era, where, I've even been interviewed or collaborated with essentially influencers who are talking about mental health, and that's okay at a certain level of transformation. But if you really want to go deep, I certainly would with someone who's experienced and who can hold that, and who I can surrender the experience to, if that makes sense.
It's also, very often there is a requirement for confrontation, which is often avoided in conventional psychology, out of courtesy or out of professionalism or out of that people just don't want to go there. And I don't follow that path. And it's painful for me because I have to say things I don't really want to say to somebody that doesn't want to hear them in that moment. And often people are shocked by it, but I still have to take my responsibility and do my job, because they put their trust in me, they give me their money, and they expect me to do my job. So I can't swipe things under the rug and look the other way and tell myself, oh, they're not ready for it or whatever, they're treatment resistant, But in retrospect, people have thanked me and have said that I was like the only one ever in their life that confronted them on the things that they were highly needed for them, and that nobody else either didn't have the guts or didn't have the authority or whatever, didn't want to do that. But on the other, the rewards are fantastic, but the amount of strain and that it takes sometimes is also quite high.
Of course, yeah. And, it's definitely something that I relate to sometimes, is confronting somebody with something that feels difficult, but definitely present. Sometimes I feel this urge of wanting to just protect the therapeutic relationship or
yes,
make them okay. So it can be for me, it's something that I struggle with sometimes, of being emotional.
I think it is something that everybody struggles with, even as a parent, because I often feel myself in the position of parental guide, Sometimes you don't want to criticize your kid, or you don't want to tell him or her certain things, but you have to, otherwise you're not a good parent. Yeah. You know for sure that is the last thing that they want to hear in that moment,
Yeah. And do you have any examples that come to your mind of where you've had to have a difficult conversation or things have got pretty challenging?
Oh, there's so many, there's countless, and it happens almost every month. There is some kind of confrontation, and I actually welcome it, because if things would go smooth, it would be much more concerning to me than when people are struggling. When they're struggling, I know that they're struggling because of the change that is induced. And when they're suffering, and you can see that pain, that emotional pain, or that that confrontation with self or with me going on, then I always welcome that, because I know that things are having traction and things are in motion. When people have a big smile on their face and wake up super happy and hunky-dory all day long, then that is of high concern to me.
Yeah. And I guess if somebody feels like they want a more gentle ride, then maybe you'll retreat yet. Maybe they try something a bit more gentle first, and then come to you when they're ready.
They can basically, because I take my responsibility very serious, but they can keep me at a distance and go like, okay, give me the soft treatment, and then I'll do that. I'm not compelled to give them the full hard shoulder, but it's the same thing with my teachers and my mentors. The times that they confronted me that I truly hated them and sometimes wanted to get physical with them were the times that I learned the most, and also the moments that I respect them the most for doing that.
Yeah. And I think ultimately people really do want to be out of their pain and their suffering.
Yeah.
I think we have this awareness that sometimes we can't go under it, we can't go over it. Sometimes we just got to go through it, so we might as well get it done.
Yeah, but now I ask for consent in a way. I tell them there is different ways to work with me. If you give me carte blanche and give me full access and full authority, that's what I always gave my masters and my teachers. But then very rapidly I regretted that too, in the moment. But afterwards, people go like, okay, this was the best thing that ever happened to me. And that moment of confrontation or friction or whatever it was in that moment, that's long forgotten.
Yeah. Okay.
It's about the change and the progress and
So it sounds like even though you are going to challenge your clients, you're also going to work with them and read the situation and hopefully move at a pace that's, comfortable or doable for them.
Of course, everybody has a different need. Requires a different approach. Every individual has a different approach, has a different set of challenges, a different background, sometimes different ethnicity or whatever, many different things that all have to be taken into account. Different age, different traumas. So it's very diverse and very challenging, and I love that part of my work, because I easily get bored and I need to be challenged myself. So it's perfect.
Yeah, good. I'm curious, this is maybe a little bit of a personal question, but you mentioned that you have Asperger's.
Yes.
I guess typically that might mean that it's harder to, I don't know, read people or read some subtleties. I get, if we look at things on paper, but it does sound like you are very attuned to people. So how has your experience been being a therapist with Asperger's?
I see it as a tremendous advantage in my work, and I would never want to get rid of it, because the level of insight, specifically on trauma, that most people don't have. The combination of the Asperger's and my personal experience with trauma understands on a complete different level what people go through. Yeah. And I didn't know I had Asperger's. I was actually diagnosed by one of my clients, strangely enough, who was a clinical psychologist like you. And he said to me, he said, "Do you know you have Asperger's?" And I was shocked. I said, I was upset. I said, "Why would you say that, other than the fact that you're a clinical psychologist?" And he said, "Well, I have it too, and I can see the trademarks." And it was very confrontational, and it took me a while to embrace it and accept it and see it as it only does positive things for me.
Yeah. Well, that's amazing. And I guess I can relate a little bit. So I have ADHD. And so the downside is sometimes maybe I don't know, jumping around a little bit. But the upside is I do feel I'm able to make links in a way that other people can't. Or, I have this my wiring means that I can see things in a slightly different way, which might be helpful for the client.
100%. And most of the people with trauma, a lot of them suffer from ADHD, suffer from bipolar, suffer from a whole series of conditions. But the most common denominator is high emotional sensitivity.
Yes. Yeah.
And in my world, I truly believe that people have a disposition for trauma as a victim, that they are prone to trauma, as I call it.
Drawn to trauma?
Prone.
Oh, okay.
Because of their high emotional sensitivity and their inability to deal with emotional exposure, it's a match made in hell.
Yeah. And that is something I'm learning about. I have only recently got diagnosed with ADHD, and that sort of rejection sensitivity is making a lot of sense to me, like how I'm very attuned to what other people are thinking. So that's kind of a gift therapeutically in my personal life, a bit more painful, but yeah. But
that is also the same, for sure, also an element of high emotional sensitivity.
Yeah, fascinating.
Otherwise, you wouldn't care about it.
Yeah, interesting. Well, you've given me a little insight on myself.
No, I come from a different approach, from non-conventional psychology approach. So I see things in a different daylight.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But interestingly enough, I talk a lot with psychologists. I had many psychologists in my program over time, and doctors and surgeons and whatnot. So there is a high level of appreciation and how you say that, recognition now for the work, more and more and more of the work that I do. Back in the day, it was like, oh, this is too alternative, and it was like black and white between the medical community and the things that we do.
Yeah.
Are you using EMDR in your practice?
No, I'm not EMDR trained. I'm interested in it, but as I don't specialize in trauma, it wasn't something that I.
Right. Okay, understand. Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to learn, but I've done so many different trainings that my husband was like, please, can you stop going on so many trainings? But yeah, I was interested with your work in trauma. You've already mentioned it can be maybe a bit heavy or challenging on you. How do you protect yourself? What's your journey been as caregiver?
Well, I have access to my own therapists and use them frequently just to recalibrate. I have an interesting kind of schedule that I set up, because I do 2 weeks in intensive care inpatient, and then I have 3 weeks off where I only do outpatients, and that's only maybe 8 a week or something, and I put them together in 2 days of the week. So that is much more sustainable and relaxing, and for me to discharge or unload all the stuff that was put upon me.
Yeah.
But if I had to do this work 24/7, like week on week on end, it would not be sustainable.
Yeah.
After 2 weeks, I need to, because it's 24/7 for 14 days. Before it was 3 weeks, but the program became so effective and efficient that people were ready after 2 weeks, and then you almost have a counter effect. At first, if people start be over treated, can have an adverse effect.
Good. Yeah. So you're able to refine like what is a good amount of time. And I like what you're saying about the structure, because when dealing with emotions and energies and trauma, as therapists, we do need to, recalibrate and be able to do it in the long run. I know I was having a conversation with somebody and they're like, wow, so you could see like 10 people a day and make this much. And it's like, I mean, that would be pretty, that just really wouldn't be sustainable. I think
impossible. It's impossible. I mean, there is a physical limit to what a human can take.
Yeah.
Especially, and if you don't respect that, then the quality of your work will very significantly decrease. But we know that, and of course we don't do that.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to raise it because I think some people feel like, oh, this is quite expensive, this retreat or this one-to-one session. And yes, sometimes it is expensive, but the therapist is making sure that they can show up fully and be fully present for you. And in order to do that, it means they can't just have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, just a million people, because the quality is going to get diluted. So I'm curious, somebody listening to this might say, I'm not ready for your retreat. It sounds a bit too intense, but I'm ready to start making a small change. Is there anything you recommend that somebody could just start doing now, like a tool or a little change in their life?
There's a couple of things that can bring very rapid change. It's learning how to breathe, because it's the first thing that we do when we come on this planet and the last thing. We take about 25,000 breaths a day, and there's days and months that go by without even one conscious breath. And if you learn about breathing and abdominal breathing and some other breathing techniques, it's a very, very powerful tool for many different things. For anxiety, for rumination, for many different things, also for physical pain often. But that would be one thing. Hydration is another thing which is critical, and most people are severely dehydrated. To make sure that you drink 2 liters of water, of mineral water a day. Before our clients, we have these big water bottles, and we check them through the day. Everybody needs to finish their quota.
And do you recommend that people add like electrolytes or drink coconut water or these kinds of things?
Well, the most important thing is that you're taking the fluids to start with. What you then add, everybody's like a little bit too fancy about their supplements and all that, Start with the basics and see where you go. And sleep is also so important.
Yes.
Because a lot of people have issues with insomnia, and that undermines their mental health tremendously.
Yeah.
So if you pay full attention, for me, a day doesn't start in the morning. My day starts the evening before, when I go to bed.
Yeah. And with regards to sleep, sometimes I feel clients like go, oh yeah, I know about sleep. When they want to go straight into the trauma and the difficult stuff. And I'm just trying to find out, okay, what are you eating, sleeping, stress levels? And I can see them be like boring, but it's really the fundamentals before.
100% fundamentals. So many things that you can take care of yourself, but you need to have a daily routine, and you need to have the discipline and the motivation to do it. Motivation is shortly lived, is the discipline that keeps you going.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I found in my personal journey is that often the period of transition is difficult, but once it's integrated into my routine, it's not actually that hard. Once it becomes my identity, part of what I do, I don't think about it anymore.
Yeah, true. And also people very often overload themselves, and the goals are way too high or unreachable, unsustainable over any period of time. People come with action plans, and I tell them cut everything in half or 1/3 and start there, and do that for a couple of weeks. Less is more, and better to do a little bit than nothing at all.
Yeah. So to do the habit stacking, don't do all or nothing, just, nice. Okay, so my last question for you is, how do you see your work evolving? What is the change that you hope to see in the world?
Well, there's been a lot of frustration over the last 25 years because everything takes so long for it to take traction in the world. And the modalities are still highly controlled by big pharma, including EMDR. It should be much more accessible. I get 30, 40. In January, I had 75 inquiries for 4 beds.
Wow.
So the demand is huge, and the availability is below any par. Over time, I would love to be involved more in training other therapists, specifically with the modalities that we have been using successfully for all these years, and bring more contribution towards other therapists.
Yeah.
Because I'm very limited with the amount of people that I can treat. We treat about 75 people a year in total, both inpatient and outpatient. So half of them are inpatient and the other half are outpatient.
Yeah. Well, I really hope that you will be able to, serve more people, because I had a dear friend of mine who had an extreme mental breakdown, and she was highly suicidal, and she found herself in a psychiatric ward, and she had so much trauma from being in that environment, in that psychiatric ward. She looks back at that time and yes, okay, maybe it stopped her from killing herself, so she should have gone. But the experience of being on that ward in that cold place was really traumatic for her. And I think if people can come to you, before it gets to that point, and have an experience that's challenging but wholesome and holistic, then that's what I would really wish for everybody.
100%. I actually treated several people over the last years with trauma from psychiatric intervention.
Yeah.
But also sometimes, if you see them in what state that they are, then there's almost no other option than that.
Exactly. And what I'm saying isn't to, minimize the value of inpatient psychiatric care. It just feels like sometimes if we could get somebody before it reaches that point.
Yeah, that would be, because often once the threshold is passed, then it's no return or very super slow return. And sometimes people are in psychiatric care for months or even longer before they can go back and do any kind of other alternative treatment. They've been medicated for a long time, and it takes a long time to build up the medication and so on and so forth. So prevention is always better. Yeah.
Well, I'm so grateful that there are people like you who are taking mental health and trauma therapy so seriously, and finding another way that is effective. And you spoke about your results and tracking things, so this doesn't sound like it's just you telling me something. You're actually seeing concrete transformation, which I think is amazing.
That is what it's all about. It's to make change and to be able to make it sustainable. Because to fly to Thailand and do a course for 2 weeks, everybody can do it, and to improve your quality of life temporarily, there's no magic to that. But to take that concept home, integrate it in your real world, and make it sustainable over a long period of time, that is the most difficult thing, and also the most important thing.
Yeah. And I think no matter what modality somebody does, that is also the most important thing, is how to integrate it and hold on to. Well, I really, really, really enjoyed our conversation today. I feel like you've actually given me some insights on my life. So thank you for that. It's really nice to be in your presence. I think some people who've really done the work, I can sort of sense, how grounded you are in yourself. And I don't know when, but maybe one day I would love to win the lottery and get one of your 4 beds one day. But thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Helene, for having me, and let me know anytime if there's anything I can be of assistance with. You're always welcome.
Oh, thank you. All right. Well, take care. See you.
Bye. Have a great day.
Thank you. Oh.